Hello and welcome to Count on Our Simplified Advice, a 360 podcast in partnership with AlexForbes, where we talk all things employee benefits. Of course, my name is Nicolette Mashila and I am your host. And today I am joined by the lovely Myrna Sachs, and she heads up the Health Management Solutions Division at AlexForbes. And we're going to be talking just employee well-being within an organization. We need to get an understanding. I mean, we've had certain instances that have really just thrown us into a tailspin in terms of how do we manage the employees' well-being within an organization. Myrna, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, before we jump into all of that, I know you're from Bloem.
I am.
How is Bloem in comparison to the lovely city of Johannesburg?
I have to say I was very grateful to being brought up in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
Very different to Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Well, when you say grateful, what are like some of the things that stand out for you?
I think no walls.
Yes.
The neighbors. We knew all our neighbors.
Yes.
I don't know who lives next door to me at the moment.
Yeah.
We were friends with everybody. People could just pop in. It was just the culture was different.
It's so
And
funny.
it was relaxed.
Yes, I can imagine. It was funny because I was watching a show last night that spoke a little bit. This lady was talking about how we are neighbors and we should be neighborly. She's like, no, we're not neighbors. Neighbors are friends. Right now, we're just people that can afford the same zip code. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh.
Now, Myrna, I know that you're very passionate about employee well-being. Earlier on, when I spoke to you, you said we take care of the employee from the day they join the organization to the day they exit, no matter what the reason is for exit. Please tell me why that is important within an organization to take care of that part of the employee.
I think, Nicolette, it's a very interesting question. I think what we need to realize is that our employees are who actually run the business. Without employees, there is no business. So if we're not looking after our staff, who's going to do the work? Because the bosses, the managers aren't going to do all the work.
True.
So unless we actually look after the staff and are there for them and support them, they're not going to actually be productive in the workplace. Morale will be low. It's a no-care attitude. I come to work because I'm getting paid. It's just a job. You want people to be passionate and love what they do. So they want to come to work, and that affects your bottom line. And that at the end of the day is unfortunately what we all look at is what is the bottom line.
Yes.
So without healthy, productive employees, you're not going to get that. And we do need to look after our staff. And the impact also, it's not just physical. We talk about employee well-being. When someone has a physical condition, you can see it. So you know what you need to do.
Yes.
But when someone has a psychological, a mental, or something that's not seen, it's harder to know what to do and when to do it. So it's actually important for companies to know how to look after the employees and what to do.
I like that because often we think, I mean, when you drive through Sandton and you see some of the big names on the buildings, we often think that's what a company's about, the building and all of that. And we forget that the integral part or the most important asset that company has is its employees.
Correct.
So I like how you position it to say we've got to make sure that we are continuously tracking our employees and managing the risk of them, especially from a health perspective. And I think that's what we want to talk about today because we're talking employee benefits, Myrna, before COVID-19, what was that? Before COVID-19 hit us, I mean, it obviously brought its own problems. But what were some of the trends that you guys were seeing in terms of employee well-being and managing the risk around that?
So I don't think the risk has changed significantly.
Okay.
What has happened though, mental health has increased significantly. Musculoskeletal issues have increased significantly. But many companies still did look after their staff. Not enough employers, but many companies did. A lot of employees opportunistically took sick leave. Yes. So they weren't really sick, but I'm having an off day. Maybe I'll just take sick leave.
Yeah.
There was no management or monitoring of it. So there was a lot of abuse of sick leave. A couple of years ago, they did a survey, and sick leave was costing companies billions.
Sure.
Billions and billions of rands. And a lot of it was people who were really just
taking a day off. Yes.
And taking advantage. And the problem comes then when you actually need it, you don't have it.
True.
And then it's unpaid.
True.
And that affects your mental health again. So it's a vicious cycle that happens. So before COVID, companies were starting to implement employee wellbeing programs, employee assistance programs. I think through COVID, they've realized, hang on, this is actually very important. And a lot more companies are looking at that. I think before COVID, companies' bottom line was, we can't afford it. Employee well-being was the first thing that got pushed aside.
Yeah.
When companies were going through bad times, retrenchments, employee well-being was the first thing that was stopped.
Yes.
Without actually realizing that that's when your staff actually need it.
Yes.
You're going through retrenchment, call in the employee assistance program. Let them do the trauma debriefing. Let them assist, financial planning.
Yes.
All that is there. So the trends are not very different. It's just that the complexity has changed.
Yes.
And I think that's what's changed.
Now, I want to hold on to something that you just mentioned now. Employees in the past were taking days off simply because they needed a day off, but they were calling it sick leave. Is there a chance that there needed to be a mental health day that needed to be taken anyway, and they were just, camouflaging it as sick leave?
So the funny thing is some companies actually have a mental health day.
Okay.
Every quarter you can take off 2 mental health days. Not many companies.
I love that.
But some companies do. But it's not just, yes, sometimes there is you need that time off.
Yes.
But people were just doing it because Nicolette's taken off. She didn't get, she's getting away with it. So why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
And that's the impact. So it affects the morale of the other staff. The other staff are actually doing your work for you.
Yes.
So they then feeling hard done by.
Yes.
I'm just going to take a day
and
off.
I guess in the absence of an actual formal structure, then
Correct.
just everybody does whatever they want.
And especially when companies don't have policies in place.
Yes.
So there's no actual policy governing what happens when someone goes off. So for example, when someone's off sick, when they come back, there should always be a return to work interview. Even if it's one day.
Okay.
Are you okay? Can you do your work? Are you on any medication? Do we need to look at some things in the work?
Hold on. Guys, and I want to just ask you now, please let me know in the comment section. Have you ever had that? I've never had that. I've taken sick leave, come back, and the moment you come back, you get told about deadlines and what you've missed and all of that.
There should be some form of support from your company.
Yeah.
Empathy.
Yes.
What happens if you're on strong medication now that affects your concentration?
Absolutely.
Now you've got to go drive a forklift. I don't want you driving a bus with people in it, but I've actually I'm on medication now that I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So managers and supervisors, line managers need to know when someone comes back from sick leave, are you okay to work?
Yes.
So that's something that companies needs to be part of the practice and the policy in a company.
And I think often what we find, Myrna, is that when there is medical aid in place, some companies just step away because you've got medical aid. There's no need for your well-being to be managed. There's no need for EAP programs. How do you guys marry the two relationships?
So I think we need to differentiate. Medical aid is there to pay for the medical service.
Not necessarily manage.
They do have disease management programs.
Yes.
They have case managers, but it's only if you are diagnosed with diabetes.
Yes.
Or cancer.
Yes.
They'll then manage the medical condition. They're not going to manage your in
psyche,
the workplace,
but
your
also
psyche.
Yes.
And not holistically.
Yes.
So as what we do as health management solutions is we manage the person holistically. We look at everything. And also the job. Can we maybe just make a tweak, just a slight accommodation in the job, and then the person can work? Whereas if you leave it as is, the person can't work at all.
Yes.
So it's looking at things like that within the workplace. Whereas your medical aid is really just, it's paying for the medical service.
Yes. Medical aid is the bank.
Yeah. And
basically.
Until it runs out, and then there's no bank. But what you also need to remember is not all your staff are on medical aid.
True.
Look at the population that there's a large population within the employee group.
Yes.
That aren't on medical aid or on a hospital plan only.
Yes.
So they're sitting at government hospitals all day waiting at the clinic to get their medication. So that's also something that you need to take into account.
I want to talk a little bit about absenteeism and presenteeism. What exactly are they? What is the difference between the two?
Okay, so from an absenteeism perspective, you're actually not at work. You're physically not there.
Okay.
So
you've taken leave.
And it could be for anything. So
yes.
Absenteeism is not just sick leave.
Yes.
There's a lot of reasons for absenteeism. Whereas presenteeism, my body's here, I'm working, but I'm not focused. I'm actually not productive. So my mind is actually on the home loan that I need to pay, my child that's sick in hospital, my domestic worker who hasn't arrived. My mind is everywhere else except on my work.
But how would you guys track that?
It's very hard to track.
Yes.
So I know there are tools that can track it. They see how long you're actually on your computer for.
Okay.
So it actually tracks that you
and then you pick up your phone.
You pick up your phone. So it actually tracks that. But
Okay.
presenteeism is something very hard to actually track.
Yeah.
So the only way you really can track that is if in the manufacturing industry, it's easy because it's production.
Yes. Yes.
How many
Output
yes. is there.
Yes.
So in certain corporate environments, there's also output
Yes.
that you need to make sure that certain things are done. So you can track it that way. But when you've got someone who it's hard to track productivity or output, it's hard to track.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to know where your staff are at.
Yes.
You need to be engaged with your staff.
Yes.
And that's why often this working from home, which we all love, is not always good because you don't know what that person is doing on the other side.
I was about to say, how do you even begin to track that when somebody's working from home?
Correct. So often what we did for all our meetings was cameras on.
Okay.
I want to see you.
Okay.
I want to see your body language.
Yes.
I want to see if you're engaged.
Yes.
I don't know, you sit in meetings and you're talking to people and you've got just the screen in front of you. You actually don't know. People might be have gone to make coffee, everything else. You're just talking. You have no clue if anyone's listening to you.
You see many of those videos when they say, Myrna, do you have anything to add?
There's
no sound. Because the person is literally doing other things.
Yeah. So managers, supervisors need to be engaged with your staff.
Yeah.
You need to know where they're at.
But does that not throw then a trust issue also in the mix?
It depends on how you do it. It's not a punitive measure.
Everybody put your cameras on now.
Yes. It's more of a culture. It needs to become the culture of the organization, or the culture of your department, or the team that you work with.
I mean, it's a different culture to establish, especially because it's a new one out, coming through from COVID. And I think we spoke a little bit about that is, you've got employees that are joining during the lockdown or just after the lockdown. How do you, at working from home, how do you get them into the culture?
It's very hard. It's very hard. And that's why you need that hybrid approach also.
Okay.
Part days back in the office, part days at home.
Yes.
But companies are all working differently. So no company has actually set a standard or that everyone's following as yet.
Okay.
So I think it's still hard. And I think everyone's still grappling with it.
Yeah.
I know the pandemic was over 2.5 years, nearly 3 years.
Doesn't feel
already.
Like
So we shouldn't still be grappling, but I think every day there's new challenges.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we get hit by this pandemic. It changes the conventional way of working at work. Obviously throws you guys in the risk management space a couple of problems, because now you've got Nicolette who's working at home. I don't have the chair that I have in my office. I don't have the environment in my office. I don't know when to check out, because when do I take a break? When do I stop working? What were you guys, what solutions were you then finding around or maybe let's start off like this. What were some of the issues that you found and what were the solutions?
Okay, so a lot of the issues were burnout.
Yes.
A lot of burnout. You were sleeping in the office.
Yes.
You weren't going home to sleep. You were actually just sleeping in the office. So
That's funny.
Your computer was never off.
Yes, yes.
So you walked past the computer, you checked emails.
Yes.
So there was never that. And also there were no boundaries. So if your manager, your supervisor or a client phoned you at 6:00 at night, you answered the phone.
Yeah.
Instead of actually saying, hang on.
This
is it. Time's out, family time or my time. You answered that phone and you did the work.
Yes.
And also managers weren't allowing you to set those boundaries because they were putting obligations on you that were actually you couldn't get to during the working day.
Yes.
So it was burnout, anxiety, stress. Musculoskeletal was a big thing. You talk about the chair.
Yes.
The office chair, the environment that we work in. So even visual, the lighting's incorrect. Or a lot of people were sitting at their kitchen table. Yes. Or they were sitting on their bed. Or on the floor.
Yes.
So the insurance companies were seeing a big increase in musculoskeletal, back issues, neck issues. When you got pain, it affects your psyche, so your mental issues. So musculoskeletal and mental and behavioral was a definite increase, and we're still seeing it.
Yes.
So mental issues now, there's still a massive trend, an increase in the trend from an absenteeism incapacity point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I have a very distinct thing, and I don't know if it's a small thing or not. You'll tell me. If I wake up in the morning and I get dressed up, I am the most productive. I feel good. Absolutely. I look good. I'm like, we're about to take on this day. But during that time, you were waking up, sitting, and you're like, okay, so what do I do? Do I put on makeup? What do I do? And you just don't get into that space where you can do any type of work because, in fact, your first meeting is like your saving grace because that's when you are forced now to get into some sort of work mode.
if you did get into that work mode, some people came to their meetings in their pajamas.
True.
Or sweatshirt,
True.
baggy pants, tracksuit, slippers.
Yeah.
And it definitely affects your psyche. And I think a lot of people, eventually you start saying to people, you have to actually get dressed.
Yes.
You've got to set routine for yourself.
Yes.
Because also people then were getting out of bed at 9 o'clock and starting work at 10 because they were working till 12 o'clock at night.
Yes.
So you've actually got to get back into that routine. And from a mental health perspective, that helps your mental health.
Yes.
Finding an activity to do, be it read a book, go walk around the garden, water the plants, actually find something to do to break the day, to have a break. You said just now, when do you take a break?
Yeah.
You've got to force yourself to actually do that.
And the adjustment from employers, what did it look like? How were they adjusting? How were they getting or offering solutions?
Yeah, employers were struggling also.
Yeah.
For them also, they were also thrown into the all of a sudden they've sent all their staff home. Didn't know what to do. A lot of companies then started putting proper policies in place.
Okay.
Making sure that there's a policy on absenteeism, incapacity, disability in the workplace, on employee well-being, should I say, from a health risk management point of view. Making sure we're looking at the individuals holistically and also making sure that all the policies talk to each other.
Yes.
It's no use having a sick leave policy that doesn't talk to your disability insurance policy.
True.
So all your policies actually had to talk to each other. So the employees know what to do. They don't look at one policy and say, you tell me to do that here, but there you tell me I must do something else.
Yeah, it's contradictory.
You can't confuse them.
Yeah.
And also what a lot of companies did, which is great, is communication. Communication is vital. Open, transparent communication for all employees. It also then puts people at ease. And also to try to get rid of the stigma attached to, in the beginning it was if you had COVID, there was a, going to hide it. There was a big stigma. And it's the same with mental health issues.
Yes.
There's a stigma attached to it.
Yes.
Men more so than women, generally, I don't know why, but generally more so than women. But we've got to get rid of the stigma. And that's what companies have started doing. They're getting EAP providers in place. They're putting programs in place. They're having open communications. They're doing webinars. They're having in-person meetings again, which I think is important. And it's all around that open, transparent communication with proper policies in place.
And financial wellness, I think quite a number of people, they had a very hyper focus on their finances during the tough time, the tough economic time that we're in at that point. What were some of the trends that you guys were seeing with that?
Okay, so it hasn't gone away. So it's still there. People are
still lurking.
It's still lurking. There's still a financial stress for some people. Some companies, few but far, but are still retrenching. Some industries aren't back to where they used to be. A lot of companies have closed.
True.
So from going from a 2-person income family to a 1-person income family is hard.
Yeah.
So that strain is still there. We've seen that on the mental side. So mental and behavioral, the anxiety, the stress, post-traumatic stress, domestic violence. It's all coming through
it's like
that
a trickling effect.
It's a trickling effect. And then we talk about presenteeism.
Yes.
Is you've got this financial strain. Are you actually present at work? You're so busy worrying about the debt.
You're literally sitting there waiting for the debit order to bounce because you know you don't have the money in the account.
That's it. So you're actually not concentrating on what you're doing. So companies need to make sure that there's somewhere that the employee can go speak, the person can go speak to.
Yeah.
And they don't want to speak to their manager. They don't want the manager to know that they've got all these problems, be it a medical condition or a financial condition.
Yeah.
So it needs to be someone that's confidential and safe.
And I want to discuss that, the take up, because I guess it's a lot. It's not easy, but it's a lot easier to say to your manager, I've been diagnosed with this condition. I need to go to hospital and but to tell somebody I've got financial problems, I've got mental health issues, that's a whole lot. It's a different ball game together. And you speak about having these external service providers that would come in and be able to offer these types of programs. What have you guys seen as a trend to the take up on it? Do employees actually use these services?
Okay, so different clients have different uptake. So some clients we're seeing a 25%, 30% uptake. Other clients are seeing a 0% uptake.
Yeah.
It's all about the confidence in the program.
Yes.
And is it confidential or is my manager still going to find out?
So
it's building that trust around it.
Yeah. Nobile is going to bring it up in the meeting. This is why. Because 1, 2, 3. And
I'm paying for it, so I have a right to know.
Yes.
No, I don't have a right to know.
Okay.
I can know the stats. As the employer, I can know the stats around it. That 10 people in my organization have phoned, 5 have got relationship issues, 3 have got financial issues.
Yes.
I can't know that it's
Who
Nicolette.
it is.
Yeah, I cannot know
Is
who
that
it
governed by the law though, or is that now it has to be in policy?
Poppy is out there.
Okay.
It's definitely governed by the law.
Okay.
So, and even with a medical condition, unless I sign consent to allow you to contact anybody about my medical condition,
you may not.
You may not.
I like
so
that.
if we as the health risk manager, you as a company can't just send me someone's sick note and say, is this a valid sick note?
Okay.
I need consent from the person to even look at their sick note.
Yeah, because sometimes you bring a sick note and the doctor is obviously vague about what's wrong with you. Then your manager says, what's wrong?
Don't have to tell them. And doctors can be vague. So if it's the first 36 days, the normal sick leave cycle, and your first 36 days, and we're not talking about extended sick leave or additional benefits, the doctor can say medical condition.
And that's it.
However, if we pick up a trend and someone becomes a high-risk individual, and we need to actually assess something's going on here, be it opportunistic or real, we need the person to sign consent so that we can get more information. Because if we can't investigate, you can terminate my services due to incapacity. Because you don't know if you need to accommodate me or don't need to accommodate me. So you can't help me.
So that's some of the data that your department then captures and analyzes is to see who are some of our high risk employees.
Yes. And I think what we need to remember is it's not punitive. We're there to help.
And it's hard. It does feel a little punitive.
No,
it feels
absolutely.
Like, why are they collecting this data? What are they doing with it? I think we do need to paint the picture of the benefit for the employee.
The benefit for the employee. And also often employees aren't getting the right treatment.
Yes.
They're not going to the right doctors, or the GPs are treating them for their mental condition instead of referring them to a psychiatrist or a psychologist to get the correct treatment.
True.
So we pick up that. And then you also pick up the minute you start, there is a punitive little element. As you start investigating, the opportunistic users go, hang on. They're monitoring it. I need to actually be careful that I take sick leave when I'm really sick.
Yes.
So the opportunistic users actually fall off.
Yes.
And that's where you're cost saving to your bottom line, because sick leave does cost companies a lot of money.
It's a deterrent.
It is a deterrent, yes.
But let's look at the positive side, which I think you mentioned something that for me is on the money, is that you are able to then assist the employee in finding the right solution. Because as you said, if you're going to a GP for mental health issues and you're not realizing that you actually have mental health issues, it's not just you getting headaches or you whatever, then so what is the conversation that happens between your department then and that employee?
So what we do on the high-risk individuals is we'll look at their trends.
Yes.
We'll do an action plan for the line managers.
Yes.
They need to have that initial conversation with the people.
Okay.
We don't take away, it's a partnership.
Yes.
And we don't take away the responsibility of HR and line. It still is, you are my employee.
Yes. Yes.
It's still my job and it's still my responsibility.
Yes.
But they would bring in an independent, unbiased medical professional to assist them with that process. We then come in, once they've got consent, we then start having conversations with the individual.
Okay.
We'll phone their doctors, we'll get their medicals, we'll see what's happening. This whole thing with COVID, long COVID is a big thing now.
Yes.
People don't realize they have long COVID, so they're getting stressed out about all these little conditions they've got, but they don't actually put it two and two together. So you're actually bringing up those issues and you're having that discussion with the individual. So when I'm talking to you about your medical condition,
yes,
something might trigger
that,
hang on. Or the person could actually be on the right, everything is on the right path.
Yes.
We just need some accommodations in the workplace.
Oh, so the manager must help me time-wise. Perhaps
either
I need,
time off or a different chair, different work height. Or I need a bigger screen.
Yes.
It's simple things.
Small interventions.
Small, and I say small interventions, nothing that is unreasonably costly for us. I'm not expecting you as an employer to build a lift when there's no lift. For you, just for you.
Yes.
So it has to be reasonable.
Yes.
So we look at those accommodations in the workplace in line with the absenteeism and the high-risk individuals.
You know, I always say for the amount of time that people spend in their workspaces, and I mean, workspace could be at home or at the actual building, this is important.
Yes.
Because this is it. I mean, yes, we need all sorts of, financial interventions, your life insurance, all of those are important, yes. But I think this is critical because it speaks to my day-to-day.
And you are at work, as you say, 8 to 10 hours of the day is work.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy in that space for any reason, there's a ripple effect on after work.
Yes.
On home and on everything else.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that our employees are And if they are struggling, why are we struggling? What is the reason? And the only way you can pick that up is if you are in touch with your employees, as I said earlier.
Yeah, because a lot of people have been referencing toxic work environments. What is a toxic work environment? Because and this is now for the benefit of everybody, because I just feel like sometimes employees can take advantage of it, but at the same time you can really have a bad work environment. What would define it?
So defining a toxic work environment is a line manager that is, I would say it's horrible.
Yes.
But really, really
punch them in the face.
Horrible. So a line manager that isn't working for you. And also just remember their personalities involved here. So my relationship with my line manager is different to your relationship with the same line manager.
All the time.
So there are personalities. So you've got to also differentiate, is it a personality issue or is it really a toxic environment?
Okay.
So is the line manager often, do they have the management skills? Do they have the right skills in place?
For a varied group of people.
Often people are promoted because I've been at the company for 10 years, so now it's time for a promotion.
We feel bad.
We feel bad, time for promotion. Whereas they're not a people person. They should never be a manager. They're technical and they're brilliant at what they do, but now they're promoted out of their means. So now they become stressed. So they don't know how to deal with their staff under them. So it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
Often it just is an environment where managers need to be dealt with. The environment needs to be dealt with. And that we can pick up. So if you pick up a trend, when we're doing our absenteeism reporting, we do it per branch or per department. And we're saying, in this particular department, there is a lot of employees suffering from this stress and anxiety. What is the problem? Let's dig deeper. Is it a supervisor, a management, a toxic environment? Is it an issue? Or is it just that the staff talk to each other? And they all have. So we pick up on different trends and we actually highlight to employees. So for every department, it's not a one size fits all solution.
Yes.
So you can have one company with 5 different departments and there's a solution for each department. That's different.
That's different from the others.
Others. So you need to make sure that you're not having a one size fits all solution for everything.
I like that. I think we started off the conversation with, the benefit for the employee quite majorly. And I think now we're starting to move to the benefit for the employer. Because if you guys are finding the trend that maybe, just maybe, Nicolette is not a great people's person and she cannot manage a team, how do we still accommodate her so that she feels like she's promoted, but we take away the element of managing humans, which then makes, she'll be far more productive,
Correct. And she won't be fired for work performance.
Yes, because it's not
that is what's happening in a lot of companies, that people are losing their jobs because they're not performing, but they're actually in the wrong job. So that also affects your mental well-being.
Yes. Okay, let's talk a little bit. I mean, we could talk the whole day. It's such an interesting conversation. I want to talk a little bit of some of the tips that you may have, for the employee themselves. So for you to really be able to get the advantage and the maximum benefit of this specific benefit within your employee space, what would be some of those tips?
So as an employee, own your health.
Okay.
Own your health. You know who you are. Nobody else does until you tell them.
True.
So own your health. If something's worrying you, find advice, go to a doctor, go speak to somebody, but understand what benefits your company has.
Yes.
Don't just say my company doesn't have X, Y, Z when you actually haven't looked. So actually understand the benefits that your company has to offer you. Don't abuse the benefits.
Yes.
Because that's when the companies take away the benefits.
Yes.
So don't abuse them, but see what there is. If there's something you think is lacking, go speak to somebody.
Yeah.
Be the pioneer for that particular thing.
But Myrna, sometimes you are the pioneer, but you're actually like the shop steward, and then you end up losing your job because you've got a big mouth in the office. Yeah, you are. You're asking for EAP programs. Who does she think she is? Sometimes it's a balancing act.
It is a balancing act.
Yeah.
Most employers will have some form of employee assistance program, be it internal or external.
Okay.
When they don't, there are people to phone. There's helplines.
Yes.
There's SADC, there's the depression line, there's financial lines that you can contact and phone. So know what there is out there to help yourself.
Yes.
Speak to your line manager, speak to HR, get people involved. If you're not coping at work, don't hide it.
Okay.
You need to actually say, I'm not coping and this is the reason why.
Okay.
Because companies have to actually investigate. So from the Labour Relations Act, if I say I have a sore toe, company has to investigate, well, can you do your job with this auto? I
Yes.
know I'm breaking it down.
No,
to
but it's good
that
because
point. So if you're not managing, say something, because all that happens is it becomes productivity. So it becomes a productivity issue and an HR issue and a disciplinary issue. And you don't want it to be that when it's actually, there's a reason behind it, a medical reason behind it. They can be assisted and helped. So what I say to employees, if you're not coping, say something.
Myrna, I think before we let you go, I just want to find out, from this benefit that employees have, how can they use it to mitigate a situation where they're leaving a job because they don't feel satisfied or they think it's a toxic environment?
I think what keeps a lot of people in their jobs is job satisfaction. And support from their managers and support from top management, also not just their direct line managers, but from the whole team.
Yes.
And I think with the employee assistance program in place and benefits in place and policies in place, employees know where they stand.
Yes.
And they understand the culture and they know the culture and they feel, I think morale is better and they're happy. And if they know that the company is there to support them in all times, times of good and bad, that the company's there, they'll actually stay at a job instead of trying out another job where they don't know what the culture of that company is like.
Yeah.
So as long as they're happy in the environment, the minute the environment gets toxic though, it changes that. So we've got to make sure that employers, the minute they pick up a toxic environment, that they actually bring in
and do something.
External support. They do interventions.
Yeah.
And they make sure that they change that environment for the better, hopefully.
Yes.
So that there is that job satisfaction, because that I think is what does keep people.
Yeah.
I know money talks, but if you don't enjoy what you do,
it doesn't really matter how much you're getting paid. Yeah. I'm squeezing just one other question. I sat in a couple of sessions with a trend analyst, and he spoke a little bit about Gen Z and how they are social justice is very important to them. Mental health is very important. The right work environment. Are you guys seeing that?
Yes.
Do they contribute to a major take up of some of these benefits?
A major take up, yes, but also they're the ones who open their mouths when they say we need.
That's the shop steward we need.
That's the shop steward we need.
Yes.
So they are the ones who are opening up, and it's not a bad thing.
Yes.
Because people who've been in companies for a long time tend to become complacent.
Yes.
It's just they carry on.
Yes.
Because they're in their comfort zone and they're comfortable.
And it's been this way for long.
So why change it?
Yeah.
Let sleeping dogs lie.
Yes.
But sometimes you need to wake up that sleeping dog.
Yes.
I think COVID did that for a lot of us. It changed that whole picture. But I think it is important. And I think it's great that they are there and they are saying what they need to say, because things are now getting done sometimes.
I mean, your company is probably going to have some of these Gen Zs, growing with it for a very long time. So I think it's important. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Any parting shots that you may have for employees and employers in terms of managing this specific benefit, so that everybody's happy?
I think just the parting shot from our side, just to employers more so, is that just employee well-being is important.
Absolutely.
It's not just bottom line. We need to look after our staff. And we need to spend money to look after our staff. And by spending that money, you're actually saving on your bottom line costs. And I think that's what sometimes it's hard to showcase that up front, because that you can only see after a year or two of the program being in place. And then they don't want to pay for that because they don't see the benefit. So the return on investment is not there up front.
Yes.
I think it's important to put your money where your mouth is, look after your staff, and just be there for your staff. And they will be there for you.
Thank you so much. And I think it circles back to what you said in the beginning of our podcast, that at the end of the day, organizations are made up of people. And if anything, they are probably the most important asset of that organization. Without them, it does not exist. So employers, I hope that you have watched this specific podcast, because it definitely is for you. But of course, also to the employee, I think Myrna said it, take care of your health. Make it a top priority for yourself. Your well-being within the organization is absolutely important. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in to Count on our Simplified Advice. It is a 360 podcast where we talk all things employee benefits. And thank you very much for tuning in and all the comments that you guys have been sending us. Hopefully, we're going to get Myrna on a live session where you can ask her all of the questions that you may have. But for now, I'd like to say goodbye.